The one and only Bailey Ortega.
That's the best I've ever gotten in my entire life.
Yay! I'm
Oh my
here for
God.
it. So how are you doing, girl?
I'm good. I had the best night of sleep I've had in a very long time. Woke up feeling great. I'm doing great. I'm feeling good.
That's good. Hey, she like feeling good, feeling great. Hey,
Right?
let them.
How are you
So let's,
doing?
we blessed to be alive. Just another day, another blessing. Hello, another opportunity.
I love it.
Let's get this started. So, Miss Bailey, can you tell us like how you got to where you are, like in your sports story?
Yeah, so I grew up dancing and playing basketball and started playing volleyball when I was like 14, 15. And it was so new and so fun. And I felt like it was just like this crazy sport that I was like, oh my gosh, like I've never played this before. Like it's so new. And so, yeah, I started playing volleyball like through club and doing a bunch of stuff with that. And then ended up committing to the University of Iowa my junior year of high school and played there for 4 years and then played this last season at LSU after I entered the transfer portal. So played 5 years of college volleyball. And yeah, I mean, my brother, he played sports growing up. He's like 6, 7 years older than me, and he's like my best friend. I was like the best man in his wedding, and um, so I would always go to his sporting events and stuff like that. So he's definitely a big reason that I got into sports for sure.
Oh, dang, you went from Iowa to LSU.
I did.
That is a huge jump right there from so so let me ask you, especially because now they're like rivals in women's basketball now all of a
Yeah.
sudden. So
Mhm. Yeah, it was definitely like because I'm a really big Iowa women's basketball fan, and I'm friends with a lot of them. So when I transferred, that was really tough because I still was cheering for them and I still love them, but it was like LSU is also like in the media, like the rival school. So I had a lot of people like, why LSU? Why would you do it? And it was like, honestly, I wasn't even expecting to choose LSU. And then I went on my visit and I was like, all right, I need to go to LSU.
so my question for you is what was the transition like coming from Iowa to LSU, like from, competing in the Big Ten to now competing to the SEC?
Yeah, I think the two biggest things for me when I went to LSU was one, just like being away from my family. Because here at Iowa, I was an hour away from home, and then I was 13 hours away from home. So that was a really big transition for me. I'm just a really big family person. And then also the weather, because I've only ever lived in Iowa where it's cold. So being down there and having it be 40 degrees and they cancel school, I'm like, what are we doing? This is like nice. This is a decent day in the winter. So um, those were two like really, really big things that I was going through like in the transition. That was definitely a little bit tough down there. Um, but yeah, just the Big Ten to the SEC, it was cool for me because I had like in a way gotten used to being in the Big Ten. So like I knew the locker rooms, I knew the gyms, I knew the teams, I knew the coaches, like I knew everyone and everything about it. So it was cool for my last season to go to the SEC and kind of have it feel new again, even though it was my last year playing and I had like experience at that level. So that was really fun, just getting to play against new people, go to new arenas, and so that was one of the really really cool parts of transitioning between conferences. Is like they're both such powerful conferences, so being able to play in both and go to different arenas was really cool.
So I was like, so is Iowa and Nebraska in the same conference, right?
Yes,
So did you play against like Nebraska when they had like that team that went to the volleyball championship and stuff?
yeah,
What was that like, especially
yeah,
playing against like the team that's been to the championships like multiple times?
yeah. No, playing against Nebraska, specifically at Nebraska, was always a really really cool environment. Even though like we never beat Nebraska in my 4 years, like, um, Yeah, Nebraska, their fans are just so dedicated. So it was cool. Even when Nebraska would come play us at Iowa, we would sell out our arena because like that's how much Nebraska fans love Nebraska volleyball. And so it was really cool to see like volleyball fans kind of rally around Nebraska every year. And like they obviously have continued doing it with like the world record they set and all of that. So at first, my freshman year, I was definitely a little starstruck because some of those girls, like I grew up loving and looked up to, and then all of a sudden, I'm across the net from them. So that was definitely had my moments of being starstruck in my first year or two when I was in the Big Ten, but um, it was also really cool because they were all so sweet, and it was always fun to play against Nebraska.
So my question for you is, do you hope to see volleyball continue to grow with viewership and the support, especially since a lot of people only see volleyball during, say, playoff time instead of like all season. So do you
Mm-hmm.
hope to see more like continuous support?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we're starting to see a lot more of is like especially with the growth of these professional leagues and there's a lot of growth happening in volleyball and I think volleyball's following the trajectory of women's basketball like women's basketball 5, 10 years ago wasn't on TV and wasn't getting all of this buzz, and now they are. And yeah, so I think volleyball is going to continue to grow. It's one of the fastest growing sports in terms of like high schoolers and young girls. So like people love the game, people want to play it, and I think once people watch it, they realize how fun it is. So I think that the professional volleyball leagues will definitely help grow the game, but also just the talent that we have at the collegiate level is unreal. And so I think the game's going to continue to grow, and I do think it's going to take the path of women's basketball, which is going to be amazing. But I'm hoping within the next couple of years, that's where we'll be.
Yeah, they just finally opened up a professional volleyball league not too long ago, and then I think they have the athlete unlimited section of it. So it's finally growing because it's like,
Yeah,
it's amazing how some of the girls they'll just be up in the air, like, dang, y'all got some just jumps, just hops and everything, like
yeah,
just.
it's nuts.
So, what position you played for volleyball?
So I'm a setter. Well, I was a setter. Um, so kind of like I run the plays. I touch like every second ball in the rally. So that it's kind of like the quarterback of the volleyball court.
Oh, so you were always at the front.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Kudos to you, girl, because it's just like I'll probably be in the back just in case for backup, because like say especially somebody hits so hard and then it's like try to block. It's like I don't want to get a facial, so.
Yeah, I play. So this past season at LSU, I ran a system where it's called a 5-1. So I'm the only setter on the court. So I played front row and back row. And it was definitely tough when I have hitters that are swinging way over me, and then my back row's just gotta figure out how to get it up. So it was pretty fun.
So my question for you is, with the growth of what's it like to see the growth of women's sports overall continue to like make records, break records, and even especially from all the sports and just you being part of that.
Yeah, I think the most exciting part for me is just that I think about how tough it was when I was a little girl to find women's sports on TV and to like in a way like find women athletes to look up to that weren't in the Olympics or like I'd have to like travel to a college game to watch these girls play. So I love how it's becoming more accessible for little girls because I think about how many little girls are playing volleyball because they can turn it on their TV and watch it or like the Caitlin Clark effect and how many girls go on their TV and watch Caitlin and they're like, I want to play women's basketball. And I think just the growth of the media and social media is just absolutely it's changed the game. And I think it's cool. I feel like a lot of the athletes that are my age and like even in college right now, we were kind of on the in between of as we were growing up, it was starting to change, but not enough. So I think it'll be really cool for this next generation of athletes to come in and continue to change the game because now they're in kind of a period where women's athletics is finally getting to shine. And I think it's only going to keep growing from here.
Yes, because Lord knows we deserve our respect. About time, but
Yeah. Yeah. And I still don't think we have the media opportunities that we should still. And it's still growing. So it's like, we're going to keep going.
especially if you think about it, like, and with NIL, it's a huge, huge thing. So, how impactful has the NIL been for both you on and off the court?
Yeah, I think the biggest impact of NIL is really just the connections I've made and the skills that I've learned. Like the amount of like friends and mentors and people in my life that I have through NIL, whether it's through the meta program I was a part of or the NIL summit and attending things like that. Like the people that I have in my life are truly amazing people because of NIL. So I love that aspect of it, but I also love all of the skills that I've gained from doing NIL. Like I'm pitching myself, I'm negotiating contracts, I'm fulfilling a contract, I'm marketing myself, I'm building a brand for myself. Like there's so many great skills that I've learned through kind of just diving headfirst into NIL. So now that I'm on the other end of it and I'm not a college athlete anymore, I'm really, really happy that I kind of dove headfirst into NIL because it's really helped me now in my professional life.
Girl, when I tell you it's about time these college players finally got their coins for their name, image, and likeness. It's been a
Yeah,
long battle too. So,
long battle.
and I know the NCAA got to is ordered to pay $2.8 billion to all the D1 athletes. So it's like, don't you love how, the how the tables be turning?
Oh yeah, I filed my claim.
Like, let me just file my claim. And
Yep.
it was crazy because I first seen that a website from somebody else, and I was like, oh, let me keep that website because I know it was like I knew some people that were playing D1, or I was with a team that played D1, but I was
Yeah.
like a student athlete manager, but I knew all the hard work they were doing, and they weren't. So
Mm-hmm.
transfer portal was the transfer portal how it was versus is now, it was totally different. And speaking
Yeah.
of transfer portal for you, what would you say is the misconception about the transfer portal?
I think that there's a lot of bad press in a way around the transfer portal because a lot of athletes go into the portal like searching for like greener grass, and sometimes the grass isn't always greener. But I think that there are a lot of reasons that an athlete can enter the portal, and it doesn't always have to be like they're searching for more NIL money or they're doing this or they want that. It's like sometimes an athlete can just have a not great experience and want to enter the portal to try something new. And for me, it was like I loved Iowa and I just wanted something new for my last year. So I think that the transfer portal gets a bad rap, but I think for me, especially when you look into like there's a trend on TikTok right now where it's like talking about what coaches have done to athletes. And a lot of people have laughed because a lot of the videos that are like kind of crazy are volleyball athletes. And I think that's a great example of like, you have no idea what is happening behind closed doors for an athlete to want to enter the portal. And I feel like it gets such a bad rep. So I think that understanding that every athlete has a different experience and that if they want to leave, that's on them because there are a lot of stories where athletes get stranded in the portal and they have nowhere to go. So it's a tough jump to enter the portal for an athlete. So I just wish we gave people a little bit more grace when they enter the transfer portal because it's not always for the dollar signs or whatever people think it may be.
Yeah, especially like, some people move because they need to be closer or want to be closer to their family because
Absolutely.
maybe there was a death or somebody's sick. So it's like, hey, I don't have to be so far apart or stuff. Or maybe they want to feel. I always say, and I've started to learn this, go where you feel valued, appreciated, and loved, not tolerated. So,
100%. 100%.
And I know exactly what trend you're talking about. It was on TikTok. It was the you're funny. It was the you're funny quote, and then they're
Yeah.
like, thanks. I'm like, just seeing all like, and then a lot of them are female athletes, and it's like a lot of, I'm like, yo. And
Yeah.
I was like, this is why I do what I do. This is why I
Mhm.
advocate athletes and athletes' mental health, because
Yeah.
people don't understand how serious this is. Like a lot of it is the, and like I said, a lot of it was volleyball. I saw some with softball, basketball. I'm like, what is happening? What's going on? Like, so my question for you is, 'cause first of all, I love your hat. Hello, I love your hat. So, my question for you is, as an athlete, I always say athletes are human first. How important is mental health to you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like mental health is really huge to me. It's something that I try to talk a lot about on my page and like talk about it on my podcast when I had it and things like that. And um, it was something where I'd always been like, people always talk to me about like mental toughness and like the mental game and all of these things. But it wasn't until I got to college around like kind of throughout my sophomore and junior year, like a little bit in my freshman year, that I started realizing how important mental health was for me as a human being. Because I think that a lot of times as athletes, when we hear about mental health, it's like for sports psychology and focus and locking in on the game. And it's like, but for me, I couldn't do any of that because I had so much going on, like in my personal life and all of that, that I couldn't even think about the sports psychology side because it was just my brain as a human that was struggling. So I think that I started going to therapy at Iowa and barely honestly talking about volleyball when I would go in those sessions. And it really, really, really helped me in a lot of ways. And same with when I went to LSU, I did the same thing, just taking care of who I am off of the court. So then once I can kind of work on that, then I can take care of myself on the court and help my teammates on the court. So, um, yeah, it's, I think back to the person I was before I started like actually caring about my mental health and being more aware of like why I do certain things, why like stuff like that. And it's really, really, really changed me. And I have some of the best friendships in the world now because I just like worked on myself and figured out the kind of person I want to be. And so therapy is highly recommend.
You mentioned a podcast. So when you had the podcast, what was that about? Like, what influenced you to start the podcast?
Yeah, so I kind of always wanted to start a podcast, and when I went to LSU, they kind of gave me the opportunity to start a podcast there that I didn't really have to do the work for. So I just had to get the guests and know what to talk about, and then they would edit it and post it for me. So that was really cool, and I just essentially like kind of what you do. Like I just wanted to share student athletes' stories and talk about like their mental health struggles and kind of have like just the raw conversations with student athletes. So that was something I was really passionate about. So I did that at LSU and I think I had like 15, 20 something episodes and it was really fun and I got to meet a lot of athletes doing it. So it was a really cool experience.
Girl, don't we love podcasts that are raw and real? Because I mean, I always say, this podcast is raw and real. There may be bloopers, but just saying,
I love it.
ain't no filter here. So,
There shouldn't be. That's the beauty of podcasts is it's not an interview that can be like choppy.
see, because then it's like you got to be professional. Like, what if like there's really it don't have to be all professional? Don't you want folks to feel like welcomed and not having to? We already feeling professional already outside of everything, so it's like,
Mhm.
can we just be ourselves? Like,
True.
so,
Exactly.
and that's why I always say, like, for me, when it comes to the podcast, I always want to provide a safe space for every person to present their stories and everything. Just like be yourself, like,
Yeah.
boom.
I love that. It's needed. It's needed, especially for athletes.
Yeah. clock that tea. I don't know why. Clock the tea. I've been finding myself doing that lately, and I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm too grown for this. I can't.
I find myself doing little like things from TikTok, and I'm like, I just gotta own it. Okay.
So my question for you is: when it comes to women's sports, how important is representation in women's sports?
It's so important. I think that um, for me, it's like when you see it, you can believe it. And I again think about like how freaking cool it would have been to turn on ESPN and like see like a women's basketball game and see like just women, like female athletes in general. And I think that social media has shown like the impact that female athletes can have, because like female athletes are crushing the NIL space and like way better than the male athletes in my opinion. So it's like I think that's a great example of why representation is so important. And um, yeah, I just the media coverage that's growing, and having little girls be able to turn on their TV and see women, I think is exactly what we need and the reason that it's growing so much. So I hope that media companies and streaming services like continue to realize that, because there is value in it. Like again, I can keep going back to like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, like Kate Martin, Cameron Brink, like this WNBA class, I think has really, really shown like the impact that women can have on sports in general. And I think that the WNBA in general has kind of reshaped women's sports as a whole. And so I think this class has done a great job of it. And I'm excited to see what the next WNBA class is going to do, because I feel like there's some really great people in that class. So yeah, it's really, really important. And I think we're seeing the effects of that.
Girl, that class last year was crazy.
It was
I remember,
nuts.
I remember seeing a meme or a clip where Kate Martin was just there for support for Caitlin, and then next thing you know, she gets called to get drafted. Like, wait a minute, I don't.
Yeah,
So it's like, what's happening? Like,
yeah,
and finally, someone mentioning Cameron Brink. Thank you, because like,
yeah,
Caitlin Brink is that girl. For me, she's that girl. Like her,
mhm.
like all of them are that. All of them are those like that girl too. Like
Yeah,
all, but like that whole draft class was just you saw like the changes of style too. That like WNBA draft like women we be beauty and beast. Like we just be beauties and then we be beasting it out in the court and the
yes.
field.
Which I love. I love that like that's kind of because again, there were like basketball players that were doing that back in the day. So I love that like they're still doing it, and it's like I can have a dress and heels on and look super great, and then I can also like go and murder people on the court.
Girl, especially the media day pictures. I be like, dang, y'all, like, okay, I love it's like the media day pictures when all the athletes, female athletes, bring them out. I'm like, yes, it's like a
I
whole
love it.
holiday happening.
Yeah, it's my favorite because sometimes it's like you don't even recognize them because you're like, wait, I usually see you in a ponytail. This is weird. Like, so I love it.
So my question is to you is who are some of the women sports athletes that you looked up to that you feel like shaped who you are on the court but also off the court?
Whew. I think for me, a really big one, volleyball wise, is Jordan Poulter. So she's the Olympic setter, and she played at Illinois. And she was one of the reasons that I started playing volleyball. I went and watched her play, and I remember I looked at my mom and I was like, I want to be like her. And it's been so cool. Like, just getting to see her around, obviously in League One, which is what I do, and she's just an amazing human, and she's so fun, and she's so herself, and just brings this great energy, and so I've just always looked up to that. So she was really big for me, and then another female athlete, just in general, I would definitely say is Kate Martin. So when I first got to Iowa, I was a really big Iowa women's basketball fan, and I remember I kind of like approached Kate as I think I was a freshman or a sophomore, and I was just kind of like, "Hey, I really look up to you. I love how you lead this team. Like you're a great leader, and I'd love to pick your brain and learn from you. And she was just like, oh my gosh, yeah, like here's my phone number, like let me help. And I was like, whoa, like she was just such a kind human and genuinely wants to help everyone. And like I think it showed in how she led that Iowa women's basketball team. And so yeah, she's someone that I have always looked up to, like I still look up to. And um I think she's just an all around fantastic human being to her core. And I think everyone knows it. So I think that's why everyone gravitates towards her and loves her so much. But yeah, I would say Jordan Poulter and Kate Martin are definitely like my two athletes that I've always looked up to. And it's cool that they're just, even though they are fantastic athletes, they're also just even better humans. And so that's why I looked up to them for sure.
Girl, I told folks, I be trying to tell folks athletes are humans first now. That title is cool, but you got to understand what they're doing is a job. So,
Yes. 100%.
because I wish people understood like all the sacrifices the athletes have to make, especially you try getting up at 5 in the morning to get ready for all the early workouts and 8 o'clock classes, and then you have to hurry up for the 8 o'clock classes, shower, and then just position work, and then go to class, and then wait. I wish the normal person would try that, and then like you talk to us to see, hey, how did it go?
Yeah.
Are you
Well,
gonna still?
yeah, I think it's the same. Like the way I describe it to people is like it's exactly like being a student with a full-time job. So like a student out there who has a full-time job and who's going to work and like they want to get up in the morning and get a workout in, and then they have to work maybe a 9 to 5, and then they come back home and then they need to do their schoolwork and then they need to study. Like it's kind of the same thing. I think we just kind of have a lot of different things in our 9 to 5. But like if you think of a full-time college student with a full-time job, like that's the best way to describe athletes. Like even when I hear people who aren't athletes say they have a full-time job, I'm like, yeah, like that's what it is for us. It's a lot of time and work for sure.
Yeah, especially it's so funny how they're like, hey, they got it. The athletes got it so easy. I'm like, no, they don't. That scholarship is only for their classes, and
Yeah.
so it don't cover for. It's like it don't cover for like food or
Mm-hmm.
other stuff. It just covers the classes and books.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's I feel like that's always the misconception about like with the full rides. Like, hey, they got it so easy. Like all the books and stuff is covered. That's the great part, but housing and food, like that's a different story.
Yeah, I
So,
will say with NIL and everything, that's definitely like it's definitely starting to change a little bit, but
so my question is for you is how would you describe your journey so far?
unexpected. I feel like that's a good word for it. I went to Iowa not expecting to play, and I ended up playing all 4 years. I never expected to leave Iowa, and I ended up transferring and playing every single game as an LSU Tiger. And I never expected to have the role that I have now with League One volleyball, and now I do, and it's like the dream. So, yeah, I think it's all kind of unexpected, and um, yeah, I feel like that's the perfect word to describe it. Like no one expected me to go D1, no one expected me to play, no one expected me to go to LSU. It's just what's happened. So
Some things are unexpected, but yet it be so. It's like the whole turning point where, hmm, you may
yeah,
not expected that, but look at God. Look at how it
yeah,
is.
exactly. No, it's almost like even more rewarding when I look back and it's like it was so unexpected and I did it anyway and it was so cool to like I always say that I wish I could go back and like tell my younger self like what I've done because I can only imagine how much further I would have gotten if I would have known that and had that confidence when I was younger. So it's rewarding to think about little me if she was looking at me now.
I know that's right.
Yeah.
So I always ask my guests this question. Bonafide means authentic and unique. So, what makes Miss Bailey Ortega Bonafide? What makes your story just stands out?
I think the biggest thing that makes my story unique is just that it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. I didn't win a ton of games when I was at Iowa, and I went to LSU and we didn't make postseason. Like there are a lot of, like you could say, like negative parts of my career, and I think that what I've tried to do is just like try to find the other side of it and try to find what I can learn and kind of see the sunshine side of it. I think that's something I always say to myself, that when I enter a room, like I want to like light up a room and walk in with sunshine and just like be that person for other people. And so I think, yeah, when I think about like being my authentic self, it's just like outgoing, I'm goofy, I'm loud all the time, and just making people feel good and making people smile and making them feel welcome. And I think yeah, I'd say that's what makes me unique and authentic and bona fide.
Ooh, let her know, girl. Hey, let them know. So, can you let the viewers know how and where they can follow you, find you, as well as any upcoming events coming up for you?
Yeah, so you can just find me on Instagram at Bailey Ortega, exactly how it's spelled. Um, my TikTok, I believe, is like Bailey Ortega 2. I don't post as much on there. I post a lot on my Instagram. um, but yeah, I'm going to be traveling a lot for this League One role. So I'm going to be in Kansas City in a couple weeks. I'll be in Indianapolis. I'll be in St. Louis. I'll be in Louisville. I'll kind of be all over the place. So lots of travels and lots of fun things like that to come.
Ooh, you heard it from the queen first, y'all. Y'all be sure to follow Miss Bailey Ortega at Bailey Ortega on Instagram. Y'all do see some reels, cause girl, them reels be fire.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in to Bonafide Her Podcast, episode 114, featuring Bailey Ortega. You could check out the live replay of episode 114 after this. Thank you, Miss Bailey, for coming in and sharing your story. Thank you guys for tuning in. Peace.